City Council to order. Are we on?
Yeah.
Lights on?
Hello?
Hello.
We're on. Okay. Call the roll, please.
Coos,
Yes.
Jason Harris,
Here.
KJ Harris,
Okay.
Olson,
Yes.
Shea,
Present.
Severson,
Here.
West. Here.
All right. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, before we get started, this item was, we were talking about competitive bids on the dock vendor program. When we originally brought this up, Manager Amelon mentioned if anybody had any changes, let them know before we did it. Since that time, we had, what we have on the original motion is just to go out to competitively bid the booths. Since that time, vendors have talked to me. We have a possible of ideas for amendments as permit eligibility as being Alaska business license, local residence, also local address. We had another amendment if anybody sells 10% or more on the cruise ships, they can't bid on the booths. The latest thing I've heard is talking about adding additional booths. One thing I can say on all these items, there is no consensus. So, but these are ideas that have been brought up from the people that are actually involved with work down there on the docks, and people who would like to get on the dock. But again, the only thing that we have in front of us as a motion is to just go out to competitive bid, so we can hear from everybody. Everybody has ideas. We can have them all speak. Then it comes down to the council. If you guys do want to make any changes or anything, then you can make some motions, or we can just go with what, go out to bid. But since we had a full agenda last week, I thought this would be better just to do it. And so did some council members to make this a separate item. Plus we have an executive session after this. So we'll get down to persons to be heard. And Steve, can you start us off? McDonald.
Thank you, Mary Williams. Steve McDonald, 412 Carolina Lake Road, Ketchikan, Alaska. Jack Shea may have been on the city council way back when in Lou Tube, about 23, 24 years ago. The city council opened up what they called the dock vendor program. Excuse me, got it backwards. The independent tour operator program. There were 6 to 8 tours sold on the average cruise ship. And if you were sold on the ship, you were not eligible to be on the dock. It was just for small local businesses. Time went on. After about 14 years, people that had invested money and had some pull, people selling airplanes and different tours off the cruise ship, petitioned some of the people from the city council, and without the people like myself who weren't sold on the cruise ships really knowing about it, they had enough support and they got it through the city council, so they were able to bid in the last 2 go-rounds, and I think they were 4 years each. I think that's been going on for 8 years. I went to Mayor Williams and talked to him and a few other council members and different people. And I explained to them that what's happening is there's so much money being made off on the cruise ships from some of the local businesses that it's caused a totally unfair playing field when it comes to bidding on these booths. When you have a $5,000 or $10,000 bus, you're bidding against people that have, $500,000, $1 million airplanes. Eventually, the small people will get phased out. And it hasn't happened yet, but I'm afraid that people like myself that have I put in 23 years down there, I've seen it all. I think that eventually we're going to lose out just because of what you're basically not able to bid. There are companies down there that are spread all over throughout the dock. Big money is winning out, $150, $200, $250, $300 bear tours. I mean, more and more people are coming up here, are going on the more expensive tours. What's going on today, as an example, in the visitor center, I think there's TAC One Air sells out of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 booths. There's RDM, there's a Promac, there's at least 7 or 8 of the 20 booths sell flight seeing there. As one example, there's 8 main booths on the dock, 6 in the dock vendor program. of which 5 of the 6 sell flight seeing. I believe Nils Utterback with Northern Tours is the only one that doesn't sell flight seeing. The other 2 main booths down at berth 4, both of them sell flight seeing. So flight seeing is virtually sold throughout the dock. I guess my main point is that if you allow everybody to bid, people that are sold on the cruise ships that already know they're going to pay their bills, that make bank, they're going to gobble up the booths where the little guys are. If you go back to the old way, the little guys will be bidding, and guess what's still going to be sold out of those booths? The same thing that's sold out of them today. Almost all of them sell flight seeing. You follow what I'm saying? So you can go back to the way it was, and you can protect the smaller people with the smaller interests in town, or you can leave it for the big boys, and eventually the bids will go up to $10,000, $12,000 a month or more, and which is good for the city, but it would be really bad for the small business operators around town. Originally, the ITO program, some of the bids were 500, 800. There was 3 of us. There were 3 others that wanted in, so the city got us all together. So we went from 1 booth on 3 docks to 6 booths on 3 docks, and so that's how we went from the 3 to 6. I heard Mayor Williams talking about diluting it to 12, and believe me, if you do that, that would be diluting it. I don't see how anybody can do justice. I mean, I have to address Justin Caro's idea about, giving it all to him. Basically, it's just like giving somebody a monopoly, which is obvious, and it's a Make Me a Millionaire club, and I'd like to join that too. If we're going to have a bid or a sweepstakes on that, I think everybody would like to probably throw their name in the hat on that idea. I can't support that idea at all. Especially when he sells everybody's tours, and he sells less than 1% of my tours, maybe even 0.5% of my tours. So even if he was in 6 booths, he still wouldn't sell enough tours for myself or a lot of the people down there to really make much of a difference, is what I'm trying to say. The program exists, and I think it was under a really good premise, and I really think that I would like to see it go back to that premise. I think that if you leave it open, then sooner or later there's going to be 5 or 6 people off the cruise ships that make big money, and they're going to suck up the small businesses, and it's going to be over for the small guys. And that's the handwriting on the wall. I see the bids going up this time, a couple $1,000 probably at least, even if the companies like TAC One Air and Promac and the Duck, people that move hundreds and hundreds of people all the time off the cruise ship, even if they don't bid, the bids are going to go up anyway, because it's competition. There's more people down there now than there was 4 years ago. John Flora and Marco have two businesses in the visitor center, so there's 2 more businesses that will be bidding. I just see it getting not out of control for the small guy, but just to the point where you're going to put him out of business. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
KJ?
What do you want us to do?
I would like to see if you're sold on the cruise ships, you're not eligible to participate in it. I'd like to see it go back to the independent tour operators.
That's the amendment number 2.
Yeah, and the other thing, there was something else. The other thing that's really, really important for me is I don't want to see people from Juneau come in here and bid. I don't want to see people from down south. I want to see the locals. You talk about Alaska business license if they have a residence here. I mean, I think it should be more qualified to more stringent, like if you're available for the Alaska Perm Fund, or if you're not gone for more than 90 days. I mean, I think that the locals need to bid on this so that the money stays here. What I don't like is when the money, if it ever gets to a situation where a lot of people from down south are up here making the money and they're sucking the money out of town, then, if that ever happens, then we should just shut the program down as far as I'm concerned.
In the same context of the question, you're talking the 10% limit, if you're selling more than 10%. Who determines that? Who does the bookwork on that? That could be another department.
I don't know where that came from. In the old days, I don't believe that was ever in there. It came up recently. I mean, it used to be you qualified by not being sold on the cruise ships, plain and simple.
Any other questions? Jack?
Steve, what do you think of the idea of putting, say, 2 more booths on at berth 4? Is that the diluting problem that you cited?
Well, I'm already down at berth 4 because I'm on private property down there. I don't think the city owns it, do they? I don't know if the city could even do that, Mr. Shea. I'm
As
not
long as
sure.
it's on the dock property, we could. Not on Berta's property.
Yeah.
Any other questions for him?
I imagine that.
Oh, we got one here, Steve from Bob.
How long have the 6 booths been available?
The 6 booths have been available, I would say like 97, 98.
It's 97, and you related to the fact that there are more businesses, small businesses. I'm not, talking. I mean, in general, there's more things going on in the dock now than there ever was back then.
Yeah.
And then we also have more birthing areas.
Yeah.
Birth port. And,
See, the money that's made off the cruise ships is turning some of the businesses much more profitable in town than the small people like myself. And that's where the monopoly is going to come from. And the city has gone out of their way to write stuff in the dock vendor, currently called the dock vendor program, to make sure that people can't work together. You have to have your own separate business. You can't have interest in another business. The monopoly is not going to come from small local businesses trying to work together down there or sell each other's tours down there. The monopoly is going to come from the people that are really profitable, the more expensive tours sold off the cruise ships. That's where the monopoly is going to come. Some of the companies are going to have so much more money than the smaller ones that the bidding process, it just can't be a clear and level playing field. And there's a lot of businesses here that are represented here, fine people. They have a lot of workers and stuff too. But like Northern Tours has been doing this for probably close to 15 years. I think Nils has 15, 17 employees. I have probably 20. Rick Thomas with Sourdough Tours has a dozen or 14. Justin is a small business. He's probably got 10 people working for him. I mean, what's going on right now is these things are being sold down there regardless, because they're being sold by the smaller companies for the bigger companies, or the bigger companies are, there's no subleasing down there, but you can provide employees. You can wheel and deal as long as it's on whoever has the lease, as long as it's their employee on paper, then they can work there and they can sell the tours for different companies. And that's what's happening down there right now. Like I said, the more expensive tours are they're sold out of 80% of the dock booths right now, 5 out of 6, plus the 2 main booths down there, 7 out of 8, that's 87.5%. I mean, they're just one short of being in every booth. So I don't really think that they're going to get hurt that much.
we're at the saturation point for booths, so.
Well, if you want to be profitable, it's bad enough having somebody next to you when somebody's having a bad day. Each booth has 2 or 3 or 4 people. If somebody's having a bad day, and then it gets stupid down there, at least 3 or 4 times a year. I mean, people just get short-tempered because you're talking about money. 22 people are coming over here asking somebody about something. They go next door. The wife goes next door and asks the other company what to do with the 22 people, and it goes back and forth. And once in a while, once a month it gets stupid. But, if you throw somebody else in there, it's really going to get stupid. It's like inviting the in-laws over and they stay 5 months.
Could you try to define independent tour operator?
Independent means you're not sold on the cruise ship. You're a local small business. You're independent from the cruise ships. You're just a local guy trying to make a living.
Any other questions, Bob?
No, thank you.
Marty?
Well, actually, I was going to ask how we would ever determine who sells 10%, but I think that's probably something, now that I think about it, that we should wait for when we discuss it later on rather than public comment.
Yeah, personally, I don't think it should be there. I think it should be gone. It should go back to the original. I don't know where it came up this time, but.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Bob Wickman.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Robert Wickman III. I live at 3527 Arnold here in Ketchikan. For the last 15 years, I worked on the dock to some extent or another in different ways, whether it's with Yellow Taxi or the airport shuttle, and now with Ketchikan Sightseeing for the last 2 years where I'm on the dock every day. So I've been around here for a while in one form or another, even as a medic going on taking people off as a volunteer for years. So this year, as I look at our bidding here, and I see a lot of, we need to do it my way so it fits my little niche. And actually, the argument I came in to make with you tonight is, everybody wants this little thing. I like the idea of going up to 12 booths. When they started this with the 6 booths, there was a lot less passengers. There was half the dock space that we have now, pretty much. And so there is, I think, believe room for 3 at each dock, to have 3 booths at each dock. And that makes it a little more available for all of us to be able to work down there. You know, personally, the ITO for the business I work with is the best thing, but I just don't think that's where it's going to go. So the 12 booths would just work much better for all of us. See, I kind of lost my place here, sorry.
Take your time.
And it should that will allow all of us, whether it's the small guys or the bigger taquans, pack hairs, everything to work down there and to work together. I mean, the fight and the squabbling, unfortunately, it is going to go on some. And it goes on whether there's one or there's 10 vendors down there in the dock. I've learned the last 2 years it's you know, it's just impossible. So increasing it, I think Steve's wrong there. It's not good. You're going to have the fights no matter how many booths are there, as long as there's more than one. And it will increase the city's revenues. If we have 12 booths instead of 6, even if you're not getting quite as much per booth, the city's going to have more revenue coming in. I will mention, because we actually had the chance, it is possible to find out 10%. Years ago, the duck boat had a booth out there, and they actually lost it because the city found that they had more than 10%, and we actually had a chance to take it after that. That's how I know for sure that happened. So it is possible to keep track of who has what percentage of sales. I mean, we're supposed to be turning in what we do to a certain extent, so it is possible, and that's why we have the city employees to do the jobs. I believe that the dock vendor program booths is adding more up to 12 booths is the best solution for all of us, small and large. That's pretty much all I have.
KJ?
Just seems to me, so you got this pie that we got here. Right now we got it cut 6 ways, maybe 8 if you count the food booths. Now if you bring in 12, isn't that going to cut it 12 ways?
Yeah, but
that's
we've increased the
everybody.
business since they first had 6.
Maybe. I think I'm not arguing against it right now, so we're just discussing stuff. It seems to me that, move away that microphone. It's just adding more booths is going to add more of a headache.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, but it offers more of us a chance to work. The visitor center has gone up to 20 booths that are all filled up, people waiting to get into them. Everybody wants to get down that dock and sell to the tourists, and more opportunities for more of us to be down there, I think, is the best thing for all of us.
Any other questions for Bob? Bob?
Do you consider yourself working for an independent tour operator at this point?
Yes.
Why is that?
John does not sell on the ships at all. We sell exclusively on the dock. He's independent by himself, and so I mean this program would like he said it was for independent, was away from the cruise ships. We do not work with the cruise ships. We do not sell on them at all, and from what I understand, one of the reasons for this program was because of the concern that Princess and Holland America was just going to come over and take over the whole dock, and this was to keep it so we could all get in there as locals and have a chance to make money off the cruise ships also. And so the independent was to keep us, independent meant you weren't affiliated with the ships, to my belief.
Go ahead, Bob.
In your statement, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about independent, and you're talking about local.
Uh-huh.
You can be local and independent, or you can be local and a tour operator that has expanded to a point where they are selling something on the ship. We're still working with local tour
Right,
operators.
which is why I kind of go with the idea of adding more booths. I don't think that there's going to be enough votes in the council to go ITO. I would actually, personally, 6-booth ITO would be perfect for me, but I don't think that that's going to probably happen. So I see 12 to make more opportunities for everybody as the ideal solution to that.
Any other questions for? Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Rob Holston. Come on up, Rob.
Rob Holston, 11380 Alderwood Street North, owner-operator of Lighthouse Excursions. The name of our tour product is Lighthouse Totems and Eagles. We're in our 11th year. Started our first year selling out of booths via a collaborative arrangement with people who had various locations. I think they only had one of your booths and then 2 or 3 other private locations. Our business did considerably better when we got a contract with Princess Cruise Lines. But we're in that sort of crack between the White Keys where we don't have contracts with Carnival or Holland or the other one-ship companies in town. And so there's half of the cruise ships that tie up here at the dock that we don't have a chance at getting or doing any business with unless we have a collaborative arrangement with someone who has been a successful winner of the bidding process. I happen to see that those companies that have several products, they're a family of products owned under one ownership, they're gradually taking over the waterfront, as well as the cruise ship industry. And there's lots of examples statewide out there. Bob Dindinger, who was one of those guys statewide, gave a talk here one time, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, and it was to tourism-related business at one of the local functions, I believe Chamber of Commerce. He says, you can look around the room, and he says, in 10 years, half of you will not be here. And it hasn't been quite that bad, but the trend is definitely there. If you think about the tours that will not be here next year, that have been here within the last 5 years, there's many, maybe for a variety of reasons. Now, we're hanging in there. There are some changes within the cruise ship industry. Their marketing techniques have changed. Travelers are traveling here to Southeast Alaska for the second, third, or even fourth or fifth time. We had a gentleman on board one of our tours 5 years ago. It was his 8th cruise to Alaska. The reason I remember that is he wrote us a glowing report that we have, posted on our website, because that shows quite a bit of credibility in his ability to critique a tour or a product. Our situation is that we would like to be sold, and we'd like to be sold in every booth. I have tried to negotiate with several booth owners, and the only one that has come up with a solution to where we're actually sold out of their booth is Justin. And I'm not sure that his solution is one that is palatable to you, but I would ask you to look at a solution that would allow local operators like myself to perhaps stand a better chance of being represented on the dock, because I see that business growing. One thing about every sale that's on the dock is you folks get 100% of the sales tax due you, as opposed to everything sold on the cruise ship. You're missing, should I say, 35 to 45% of sales tax revenue. That's just the way it is. If it's sold locally, you're getting more. So I think you should consider whatever avenue would allow the most sales opportunities. And it's a business relationship out there. I can't go out and force some booth owner to sell my product. Or if they take it on, are they going to take it on with enthusiasm? And I don't know if you can have anything in your bylaws or under the conditions by which you lease a booth that would allow operators like me to be able to have their product sold in the booth. The only proposal I've seen that accomplishes that is Justin's proposal. I'd certainly be interested in that proposal or other proposals that would allow those operators that are not large enough, like myself, to afford a booth. You have to look and see if you've got a booth and you're basically only selling your product, and about half the time the booth space is a dead space. It's just not in the right location for that day. And the other half of the time it might be in an excellent location, dependent upon lots of variables. But I would like to speak perhaps for others out there, and I have made no attempt to contact others who are in my position, but There are about 33 products, I think, sold locally here on cruise ships, maybe more. Maybe it's up to 40 now. So there's got to be others that are in my category. Our product sells for just under $100 retail. And there's not a lot of product that sells right in that price point. You would think that booth owners would be very willing to accept the sale of that product for the same high commission that the cruise ships take for that product. No more exposure than perhaps a small space for a poster and rack card and a little bit of knowledge of the product, and they've got a lot of profit there where they have not exposed themselves to any risk. They aren't paying for a crew, they aren't paying for diesel fuel, they aren't paying for insurance on my vessels or any of the food and drink that we're giving away. You'd think it would be a profitable and mutually beneficial situation. So far, though, I've kind of come up against brick walls in dealing or trying to achieve that, except with Justin.
Any
I'd be willing to answer any questions if you have any.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thanks.
You bet. John?
All right, Mayor, Council, good evening. John
Good to-
Maloof, 484 Pond Reef Road. I'm the owner of Alaska Amphibious Tours and Alaska Hummer Adventures. And I'd just like to say that I've been a part of the booth program in the past, and I can definitely consider myself a local here. I created a couple great products, I think, that complement our town. I worked hard to create great products. I worked hard to get them on the ships. I also sell a lot on the dock. It's very instrumental in my business plan, both selling on the dock and the ships. I don't feel I should be excluded because I've created a great product and, worked my butt off to get on the ships, I don't think I should be penalized because of my success, basically, yeah. So I think I should be able to bid as far as anybody that was going to call me, it's going to call me not independent, but I feel I am independent because I stand on my own. It's just me and my wife. We own all the companies. We're not owned by a corporation or anything like that. So I'd like the opportunity to bid, and if you guys have any questions for me,
Any questions for John? No? Oh, go ahead, Bob.
So you're selling a combination right now of something on the ship and something on the dock.
Yeah. And I'm not sold on all the ships either, there's still ships that I'm not sold on. So, I strive every year to get on more.
So when you first started out, were you just selling basically on the docks?
I didn't have any contract with anybody anywhere when I started out, selling on the dock, peddling myself to any travel agent and any cruise ship that would even talk to me. So,
So what did it take for you to finally start marketing yourself on the ship?
good product, yeah. The ships hold us to a standard. You can't have, sub tour. You got to have good quality. You have to give a good product. You have to have good equipment. You have to be, it goes all around. So, yeah.
Anything else for John? Go ahead, Dick.
John, which tours do you run?
I run the Alaska Amphibious Tours and Alaska Hummer Adventures.
Okay, you've got the duck
Yeah.
He's the Dick guy.
and Hummers, okay.
And just for note, I never have been kicked out of the booth. I had a couple sessions where I was a leaseholder, but we finished those leases completely. When I was in there was no stipulations that we could not bid because we were on the ship. So, yeah.
How do you see the balance coming in the future with the 6 booths that we have?
They're going to be competitive bids for them for sure. There's a lot of people that are going to want to get in there. I really don't support the idea that Justin's trying to float across with the brokerage thing because, he sells my tour, but, if that goes out for bid, I don't know who's going to be selling that. And, I like to represent myself in a certain way on the dock and, my people from the time I sell them the ticket to the time I drop them off at the end. And, I like to be able to control that in my business. So, just randomly throwing it out for an open bid for anybody to do a brokerage to sell everybody's tour, I think it's not really the right thing to do,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys.
All right, next we have Michael. And Michael, I can't read your writing on your last name.
That's here, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Mateer, 427 Strawberry Road, and I guess I'm the new guy on the block. I started Sunday. I have Seaside Tours. I have one van, and I don't know. I'm not a market analyst, so I really have no suggestions for what we can do down there. But I really don't see a free enterprise system existing. I don't really believe that more booths are the answer because, you know, unless you make them more affordable, I mean, I can't bid against basically what amounts to a Fortune 500 company. You know, I don't know what the suggestion would be. If they put more booths down there, I don't think it would be, you know, turn it into a carnival environment where, you know, where you're being thrown at things every 5 feet down the dock. So I really have no suggestion, but you know, something has to be done, and there's, you know, to make it a more competitive environment. I sell my tour through a couple of associates down there. I see the price of my tour. I get probably half of what it sells for. You know, I'm happy to take that for now. I have no booth, and there's no, you know, there's really no perspective for me to obtain one in the next possibly a couple of years even. You know, the visitor center has a 2-year waiting list, and the situation on the docks is what it is. So, you know, it's in you guys' lap. I'd really like to see it go back to the, you know, to the way it was in the beginning when it was, you know, set up for just small businesses. You know, that's what we're here for. I work construction around town here. I work for Seacon. You know, I see a lot of our construction jobs being outsourced. These monies are leaving the town, you know, so I mean, here we go with this. It's, you know, that's that environment. This is this environment. Same thing here. You know, we need to start putting some more money in Credit One and you know, in Tongass Federal and things like that instead of the banks down in Sacramento and wherever else the money's going here. So that's all I got to say, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott Baker.
Hello, I'm Scott Baker that has First Shot Tours. I live at 933 Lincoln Street. Now, I run such a specialized tour that I have to search onto the ship in order to sell it, because nobody else will sell it other than Justin, and I have my rack cards in the KVB. I'm associated with them, and I've got it in one booth. But in order to get more exposure at the dock, I'd love to see this go through. And it's either that or else I have to seek the ships in order to make a profit. But I'm for this. I'd really like to see it go through. And Justin's been always fair with me. I don't know how everybody feels about him, but I think he's a good guy. I don't feel that way about everybody. So, but I don't know how many of you have been on the cruises, and that I came up here in 2005, and it was a sunny day, unlike this year. I think my feet are becoming webbed, but I came back here because I thought it was a beautiful place, and I don't know how many of you was raised that was raised here, but I think it's a beautiful place, and I like to see other people enjoy it.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Harris.
What you made reference to, you'd like to see it pass. There's several things that are kind of being discussed. So can you kind of give us the idea of what you're?
Justin runs a unique type of system, and he represents a lot of people.
So you're just for clarification, you're in favor of Justin having?
He's the only one that's qualified.
Okay. And then secondly, what's your tour? I'm just curious.
I do it's a rifle and pistol education. So it's totally no live people. You know, I'm not fast enough, and nobody else is fast enough. But everybody that I've taken out has really enjoyed it. And even I've taken some Shore X's out, and they just love it. So,
Thank you.
nothing like touching off a gun.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I did forget when I was mentioning all the different options, Justin did come up with a separate option, which they're all talking about. And since we're talking about him, Justin, come on down.
Hello, Justin Caro, 2336 4th Avenue, but you probably all know that by now. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I mean, I did write you guys about what my concerns were with the industry, and I hope that all of you have had the opportunity to kind of review those, and I'm available if you guys have any questions about anything that was written there. I did want to touch on a couple of things that have been stated and give a little bit of history, because there was some question about the history before. In 1993 actually was when the booth program was converted to what it is now. I did that. I found that out with the assistance of the city clerk's office. They helped look that information up for me. And it's been in its mostly the state that it is now since then. Originally it was established because there were people just hawking their tours out of vehicles with no place to sell, and it was becoming a nuisance in the downtown area. So the city, in their wisdom, created this program whereby the handful of operators at that time could have a place to actually sell, which seems like a very good solution. But 15 years from then, 20 years, whatever it is, there's over 50 companies, and the program is just overrun. I mean, the industry has outgrown the program. The program needs to change at this point because of the dominance it gives to one particular company who happens to hold the booth. Now, Steve had expressed some concerns about monopoly here, saying that monopoly is not going to come from the small guy. Well, if Steve still considers himself a small guy, not to single out Steve. I mean, I love Steve. I sell his tours, even though we have a disagreement. I mean, I used to work for Steve. I used to be a sales manager, and I'll always sell his tours, and I'm okay with having a difference of political opinion with him. But the bottom line is he's been in the program, as he stated up here in front of you. In 1990, whatever, we went and we all sat down, and it went from 1 booth to 2 booths to 6 booths, and here he is still 20 years later, part of the program. So whose monopoly are we talking about? Okay. He says, I want to be in the millionaire club, and that's what this is all about. But it may be nothing better than a transfer of the overhead. I mean, the city's still going to want their share. It's not like I'm not going to pay the operators to run their tours. You still have to pay the employees. You still have to have the insurance. And considering that I wouldn't even be able to run my own tours, which if you run your own tours, you're looking at 90% profit per seat. If you're selling somebody else's, it might, anywhere from 10 to 40% of this ticket. So it might be nothing different than a transfer of the overhead, in my opinion. There's no guarantee of profits. Okay, there is still risk. I did look at Amendment 2, and it's ultimately because of how Amendment 2 is written that it concerns me that the other operators that had pushed that forward, the amendment itself is not good enough. It is not sufficient to address the concerns that were brought forward by the other operators. There's no way, considering the amount of money that can be made off of those booths by a company selling its own tour and the dominance that it gives that particular company, there's no way that someone wouldn't put the time and effort and resources to just find a way around it. As we have examples, Steve and Rick, all their stuff goes on the same tour at the same time, sold by different people for different companies, but it's all their company. So what's really the difference? They own 1/3 of the booth program and have for 20 years. So I say that's a monopoly. I say that the program is being abused. I like Spirit of Alaska tours. I mean, I like Otto's tours. I like Nils tours. I like everybody's tours in here. I fought like hell to be able to sell Brian's tour because I like Mr. Salazar's tour. And I wouldn't want to see any of them not represented on the docks. All of them have the right to be represented. Even if you are sold on the cruise ships, you have a right for your tours to be sold on the docks. That's reasonable. But what is not reasonable is that a company that is carried on the ships, who has so much money because they are carried on the ships, can monopolize the program by driving up the bids year after year. So in one respect, I do believe in what Steve is saying, that they should be excluded from the bidding process, but I don't think that they should be excluded from being sold on the docks. And he's right. Taquan may have a booth, but you see Taquan jackets at several locations. You see them at Cause's booth, you see them at Taquan's booth, you see them all over the docks. And if you're not allowed to share employees and you're not allowed to share management practices, well, that's clearly written in the in the contract that it is not supposed to be that way. Yet there's a loophole, there's a way around it, and like I said, there's just no way that the city has the time and resources to put into writing the contract tight enough so that people cannot find a loophole around it, and much less enforce the contract. 25% of Port Security's time is already dedicated to making sure that everybody gets along. I don't think that we should spend even that much time. I don't like what John says about it being a penalty. It's not a penalty if he's not allowed to bid on the program. It is a government program designed to help small businesses. Once you're carried on the ship, I have to really consider whether or not you're a small business at that point. Your stuff is pre-sold for you ahead of time. I mean, everybody's still a small business because, you know, we're not Fortune 500 companies. But some of us have it better than others. And if the government's out there to help small businesses, then they shouldn't be helping the ones along that are already helped so much by the industry that they don't really need the help anymore. So I don't subscribe to the fact that it's a penalty. I'd say it's more like it's time that he got off welfare. It is the most expensive rent in the country. It's the most expensive rent in the country. $6,000 a month for 10 square feet of dock space. Well, I guess you got your 6 feet around it too. But it's the most expensive rent in the country. And if that doesn't tell you that there are driving economic forces beyond which the city are going to be able to control, I don't know what else will tell you. But it's the most expensive rent in the country. It does take a good product, as John said. It does take a good product to be carried on the ship, but it also takes that 1 year of commitment, as the guys in the stunt show will tell you. They have hemorrhaged thousands of dollars this year in rent, in manpower, just establishing themselves in the community so that they can present themselves to the ship, only for the chance and no guarantee. You got to put in that year worth of time to be carried on the ship, because unless you have history, the ship doesn't want to talk to you. They got too many options. It's just an idea. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the resources. So it's not just about having a good product. You got to have that exposure. And if you don't have the opportunity to be exposed, then you're never going to get that exposure. I think that adding 2 booths to berth 4, I think, would be a good idea. I can see where Steve would be opposed to it because he controls some of the booths down there, so it'll create more competition. Understandably, from a self-interest point of view, in the open market, yeah, that's absolutely a solid thing to say. I really don't like the idea of having 4 booths next to each other at the bottom of the gangway, or 3. Right now we have already enough animosity between 2 booths, and it's hard enough just to get 2 people to get along. I'm surprised we got this many people here at the same time, at the same hour, on the same day. But adding more booths is just going to create more hawking. It's going to go against what other people, they come up here and say, there's too much hawking. You can't walk down the street without being accosted. Somebody wants to pull you in their jewelry store. Somebody wants to sell you in a tour. Even if you eliminated the 6 dock booths, you'd still have 50 other locations in the community, whereby if you walk by, someone's going to try and sell you a tour. Now, granted, 20 of those are in the Visitors Bureau, and if any of you have ever gone into the Visitors Bureau right after the boat unloaded on berth 2, you immediately turn around and walk away, because it's crazy in there as everybody's trying to sell everybody, and it's like a auction house to some extent. So I don't think adding more booths is going to be productive in regards to people who are not related to the industry and how they're going to feel about the presentation of the community. But Steve is right. There's too much hawking, and it'll create more animosity amongst the booth. He is right about that. So I can see where he wouldn't want more booths down there, because it will cut into his section. But as I said before, there's no guarantee that I'll succeed with the proposals that I have made. It might just be a transfer of overhead costs. But I should point out that since Skagway, I did give you a copy of the Skagway contract to look over. You can give them a call. I encourage you to call the city of Skagway. I talked to them, and they said that there is not one complaint in the file in the last 5 years that they've run this program. Not by any vendor, not by any tourist, not by anybody. It's a fine program. As far as they know, they're going to renew it and go forward with the same idea. There's no reason to do anything else. It's a good idea. It is a local public resource. So I will say that even Even though I think everybody should be represented on the docks. I think Marco's tour should be represented on the docks. I think that Don and Taquan and all those guys should be represented on the docks. But I don't think that a local public resource should be allowed to be bid on by someone who is not a member of the local public and controlled by somebody down south or even up in Juneau or somewhere else. And if we don't take action at this time, there's just enough money on the table that someone's eventually just going to find a way to do it, in my opinion. And that's based on my own economic analysis. You can take it for what it is. I'm not always right, but I'm often not wrong. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Justin? Seeing none? Thank you very much, Justin. Okay, I'm at the end of the list. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to the council? Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian Salzar, 4162 Valner Lane. I'm the president of Taquan Air, and I'm here to speak on Amendment 2 and just kind of clarify some of the stuff. We're a locally owned business. We're a year-round business. We operate 12 months a year. I started the company in 2000, about 12 years ago, with nothing, and since then, my goal was to become a tour. Well, we started with a Forest Service contract with Taquan, and I quickly found that we couldn't make money in that type of business, offering charters and Forest Service and scheduled flights. So we moved into the tourism business, and over time, my goal was to become to be sold on board all the ships. Well, to this day, we're not sold on all the ships with our products. But we invested a lot of money, and we've put a lot of quality products out there to be on the ships. And now I'm the president of Alaska Rainforest Sanctuary, Alaska Canopy Ventures, Adventure Carts, and Harbor Point. And collectively, we employ over 200 people a year in the summertime. We are probably one of the top 5 largest employers in the city, and we pay a lot of property taxes and a lot of sales taxes. We're probably one of the largest private companies that does that. But we got on board the ships by being safe, by offering quality products, first-class people, first-class equipment, having nice shiny vans, shiny airplanes, great facilities, and we built up a level of trust with the cruise lines. And we didn't do that. Nobody gave that to us. We had to work our butt off every day to try to do that, and we still do it every day. We have some of the highest quality tours on board the ships, as per like Princess Independent Rating Scales. We take a lot of pride in that, and the only way to do that is for us to work our butt off and do a great quality product at a low price. And nobody controls that for us. We control our own destiny. And as far as Amendment 2, I think that that's a little bit of restrictive trade by not allowing us to sell on the ships. As far as the ships are concerned, how they sell their tours, they sell tours with on board, they sell them on the internet, and by the time they get off the ship, if they haven't sold their tour, then they're up for the dock sales or internet sales or however you want to sell your tour. But if we have an airplane or a zip line or whatever tour we have going off with only 2 people on it, we're not making any money on it. So we shouldn't be prohibited the opportunity to sell on the docks to get another 2 people or 4 people to at least break even on that tour. And that's where I think that having timber senior business sold on the ships is predatory trade. And I don't agree with it, and I feel like, you know, out of all the businesses here, we're not a monopoly, we're not a Fortune 500 company, but we do support this community, and we have a lot of money invested in this community, and we employ a lot of people in this community. And one of the things about getting bigger is you still have to feed your families, and you still have to feed the people that are working for you and their families. And as the larger you get, you have to have more legs on your stool. And we need support from all angles to be able to be successful. And we shouldn't be jeopardized for not being successful. As far as the lower bid, or the higher, us escalating the bids on the ships, or on the dock vendor permit, we were the lowest bidder. And we have to do that as a profit and loss, you know, a break-even analysis. How many tours do we have to sell to make this $4,000 to $6,000 a month payment? And we're not stupid. You know, we need to say, hey, this is going to make sense or it's not going to make sense. And we didn't bid up the prices, like everybody said. Our fuel prices have gone up 100% in the last 3 years. We need every sales channel we can get to combat some of that stuff. I just don't feel like we should be penalized for our success. And you know, there's a lot more successful businesses than we are. We're just lucky and we work hard. So appreciate it.
Any questions for Brian? Jack?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for your testimony. What do you think of expanding the number of booths?
I don't really. If it's up to you guys. I mean, it's gonna. Berth 4 has already got 4 or 6 booths on it. I think it's probably gonna, you know, spread it a little thin out there and just make it a little more chaotic. Where all the other booths, there's 2 per berth, and now you'd have 6 or 8 on berth 4, which I think you probably should talk to Southeast Steve worrying about that too.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
Anyone else want to speak to the council tonight? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tori Korn. I live at 3710 Alaska Avenue. I'm the general manager for Alaska Rainforest Sanctuary and Alaska Canopy Adventures, located at 116 Wood Road out in Herring Cove. Alaska Rainforest Sanctuary started in 2004 when 3 Ketchikan residents bought the property that used to be the Herring Bay Sawmill, lumber company, excuse me. And a trail system was developed through the rainforest. A guided trail hike was started along with some wildlife viewing opportunities, and then eventually zip lines were brought in and cruise lines had offered the product kind of as we went through. I think we feel like we're a pretty successful business out there. I think visitors and locals alike have a pretty good time, especially on the zip line tour. It's a very popular product right now. Approximately, we do have a number of contracts on the ships. I would say most of our business is done on the ships. But as most of you know, since 2008, we've seen a decrease in cruise ship passenger volume, things of that nature. We lost some ships. Things are coming back now. We've seen a decrease in some of our tours sales from on board the ship between 10 and 25%, which is a big hit to our business. The one part of our business that has grown is this independent sales market, and the majority of that is done on the dock, to the point now where about 15 to 20% of our revenue will be from independent sales, whether it be from our website or the ones on the dock. We're not asking for any handouts here. We just want the right to competitively bid for this booth space to continue the growth that we've seen there, and that we ask that you not pass the amendment, and we do not oppose amendment number 1, though. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Jack?
Which amendment are you talking about now?
The one, we are asking you not to pass amendment 2 for the 10% sold on board.
What is your opinion on amendment 1?
Amendment 1? I think the money needs to stay in the community. I mean, we're a locally owned business. I wouldn't want to see somebody from Skagway or Anchorage come down here and bid on booths, or somebody out of Seattle. I think you need to have an Alaska business license and have a local address.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't see any other questions. Anybody else want to address the council? Come on, young lady, and then Marco.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Chatham. I live at 744 Hopkins Alley. I manage the tour operations for both Taquan Air and the Adventure Cart Expedition. Both are small local businesses owned by Brian Salzar. At Taquan, we operate 8 de Havilland Beaver float planes. We operate these from what is recognized as the most modern float plane base in the state. We offer year-round service for locals and visitors alike. Revenues generated by flight scene tours in the summer season make it possible for Taquan to maintain the year-round passenger mail and freight service. This service provides a vital link to 18 outlying communities and also to Ketchikan. Adventure Carts LLC operates a tour using 30 off-road vehicles on former logging roads. The 7 miles of private forest land is located at Whipple Creek. Taquan flight scene tours and the Adventure Cart Expedition are pre-sold with cruise lines and offer another dimension of excursions that add to our community's attraction base. We hope that you will not pass the proposed Amendment 2 to the dock vendor program that states businesses who do more than 10% of sales aboard cruise ships make an operator ineligible to bid. This will prohibit our ability to competitively bid while fixing something that is not broken. Any tour operator can bid on the same cruise line contracts that we choose to bid on, and the same should be true for the dock vendor program. We should not be punished for being awarded cruise line contracts or for any other way we choose to diversify our revenue stream. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
All right.
Thank you very much.
You.
I am Betsy Burdett from 37 Potter Road. We operate the Zipline Tours out north. We are the Rainforest Ropes and Zipline Tour. We can't really compete that well with the other Canopy Tour, but we are a small tour operator. We've been in business for 25 years. I kind of go with what Wendy is saying, is that our business is off, and we're coming back a little bit due to dock sales. We've been the only people that sell our tour is ProMech, and then Justin. And yeah, we've only been working with Justin for 2 years, and it's just been great for us because he's very even-handed. He sells our tour, I think, equally with the Canopy, and I like that. I like that proposal, and I also don't want to be jeopardized for the fact that we've worked so hard to get to where we are today, out at 37 Potter Road, and not dodging float planes out here in the Narrows. But that's it. I just wanted to say that I support Justin.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Marco, then you.
Good evening. I'm Marco Angarano, owner of Ketchi Tour. I live in 2442nd 4th Avenue. And first of all, I just want to remind the council, you've seen me here over the years, asking for a chance to be able to bid. I'm glad it's finally opened up after I've been in business for 3 years. Started out with one shuttle. I've successfully been able to put in a couple more vehicles, and basically offering local land tours where we show pretty much what my competition does. You know, we're right out there offering a little bit different product, but about the same parameters. And the way I see the discussion, it's basically, on one hand, I think there's the decision you guys need to make, and I'm not going to try to convince you either way, is basically either open bid, competitive bid, it's all open for everybody, with those parameters that it can't be people from Skagway, from Juneau, etc. But it's basically everybody who's here in the room gets a fair shot at bidding. And on the other hand, the discussion is going for the ITO. Now, I consider myself an ITO. I'd be on the bandwagon to say go for ITO, but putting things in perspective and being fair, the bottom line is that you can't speak of ITO when on one hand you're brokering, and on the other hand you're selling things that have already been pre-sold on the cruise ship. So if you are going to go ITO, you do have to eliminate the fact that anything being sold on the ship can't be sold. The people selling on the ship wouldn't be able to bid for a booth, and they couldn't have somebody else who has bid on the booth sell for them. You're either going to put things in perspective and save the little guy by not allowing the people being sold on the cruise ship to be sold, or you go completely open bid. So you guys have to take the decision of what route it is going to be. Now, on the other hand, they said the program has been relatively here for 20 years. 97, there's been a change in parameters. That's when companies that were being sold on the cruise ship were able to bid for a booth. And basically, the industry, the town has changed a lot in those 14 years. 12 years, 14 years. We've gone from having only 500,000 tourists that used to come back in those years. We only had 3 booths. And currently, there's a 4th booth. There's been an extension on Dock 1. There's definitely more terrain, more real estate out there. There's double as much tourists coming in now. Now we're close to 1 million. There's an estimation, let's keep our fingers crossed that the industry will be up to 1.3 million in the next 5 years. So if this program is going to be open until we might sit here in the next 5-6 years asking to see how it's going to be rebid. But for now, if we focus on what's currently the trend, what's the industry, and what are the needs for the town, anybody wanting to walk around the docks can easily see that 80% of the people coming off the cruise ships can't be absorbed by those city booths. So two city booths per dock is a small number. There's 2,000 people just pouring out there. The fact that there's companies who have rental places on private property right outside of the city booths, and they can successfully sell, that just means that there's they're way beyond their capacity. The amount of people they can sell off the cruise ships. So if we put another booth per dock, they wouldn't really affect the sales from one booth to another. KBB has 20 booths, and literally it's in a cubicle a little bit bigger than this podium, one guy after another. Everybody's able to make business there. Nobody's, it gets competitive, but everybody's able to sell. There's satisfied customers there that have a variety of choices. The fact that we go from 2 booths to 3 per dock isn't going to hurt the industry a little bit. It'll release pressure on something that there's high demand for, city booths. Now you have 3 per booths. We include dock 4. Well, there's already booths. I sell off of one of the booths that are on private property. It wouldn't hurt the industry to have an additional 3 booths right in front. There you have your 3 booths per dock, a total of 12. And that way you give a fair shot to everybody. Rather than being the discussion of, my question is really, just give it to one company so that they can monopolize everything. I'd say let's open it up for everybody. Big guys, small guys. Otherwise, we're just going to be hurting feelings of successful companies who have, the key word is work your butt off. I can see, even though I'm not sold on the cruise ships, I'm not a big guy, I consider myself working my butt off as well. And I'm glad I have a chance now to bid for a dock. And the more the merrier. There's more than 12 people here who would want a booth. If only 9 people bid for a booth and there's no more demand, hey, so be it. Then everybody's happy. If there's 15 people bidding, the city still gets the 12 highest bids. And that could be a win-win solution for everybody. So rather than exclude, I'd say expand it. Let's adopt to what the town has transformed. There's been a huge amount of changes. We need to adapt to this. There's going to be changes in the next 4 or 5 years. Let's welcome these new businesses. The town definitely needs it, and there's no sense in restricting the growth. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
All right. One more gentleman we see here.
Mayor, City Council. Sorry, I hate speaking publicly, but I get kind of, shy. But
don't worry.
I'm a local independent tour operator. My address is 832 Buren. I operate off of Creek Street. My company's called Creek Street Rod Rentals. I'm a small guy. I work really hard out here, and to get the opportunity for Justin Caro to sell my tour out of his booth is substantial to me. Okay. I get a lot of business from him. He helps me make my money for my family, for my company. And I think it would be a really good opportunity for all us little guys just like me out there to be able to get into each and every one of these booths in front of every cruise ship that we have. And for me to get just that small crack at it, And granted, it might, it would be a really wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think Justin is very fair. I think he is the perfect person for the job. And he would evenly distribute all of us, because people come off and they want what they want. They're either going to want to go flight seeing, fishing, land tours. They pretty much already know what they want to see. And Justin I consider him like orbits. He fills in the blanks. For those of us who may have, 2 or 3 people on our tour, we call Justin up and say, hey man, give a push for us. We need to fill up a few more seats. Justin goes out of his way to get down on the dock himself, not only with his company, but to sell those tours, so that I can make my trip a cost-effective trip for my company. And I am all for it. And I really think you guys should be as well. I think it would be really beneficial to our community here, because the fact of the matter is that with having all the competitive salespeople next to each other, you create a lot of animosity towards local vendors. And if everybody was to work together out here, it would be a much more pleasurable place to visit, you know. People would enjoy themselves a lot more, and there wouldn't be the pressure of, hey, buy my tour, or hey, buy my tour, and you have to bounce back and forth. He's got a whole big list of all these wonderful opportunities for these people to do in the community. And I'm all for it, you guys, and I really think it's a really wonderful idea. And I don't think he'd been monopolizing it, because he, you know, as me and any other independent operator out here, we're willing to pay that commission for that seat. And be it his employees or their employees, whoever it is, if anybody out there, I encourage every company that owns a booth to sell my tour. I would be more than happy to pay the commission for it. And that would give me that opportunity to get the exposure that I may need to build my business in the future, to be able to be a good person to be able to create my company and work as hard as I can out here. And I give it 110% effort on every tour I do, every fishing pole I rent. I make sure those kids catch a fish. You know, I very rarely have any bad comments about anything that I do or hear out here. And my number one goal out here is to make sure these passengers have a good time in my community so they want to come back. And that's beneficial to all of us. And, you know, I just want to stress the fact that I really do think it's a great idea, and we should consider some of his options. And if anybody has any questions, feel free.
I have a question. What's your name?
My name is Nick Seestein.
Can you spell your last name?
It's SICHTING.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Forrest Townsend. I live on 1712 2nd Avenue. Earlier, somebody tried to, Marco tried to summarize an argument that you have to go for the independent tour operators, or you have to go competitive bidding market for everybody. And the whole reason why this proposal is so important to the industry, Justin's proposal, I mean, that a broker have the ability to represent everybody, is that you don't have to be exclusive at all. There's a certain point on the day on the docks where all that calm has suddenly appeared that didn't exist, because the morning there's a lot of energy, people are coming off the boats, the tour salesmen are everywhere and they're talking to people, and there's a lot going on, and vehicles are moving on and off. And then later on the day, and it slows down, and you see a few guys still left on the docks. There's going to be people like Don and his guys, they're going to be selling flight scenes to the very last minute. And then when they are done selling, they go home. If there's a northbound ship in front of our sales location, I can't go home, nor can any of my salesmen, because we still have opportunities to sell, because we represent people in Juneau and Skagway and everywhere else. It can be even more inclusive than what anybody else is thinking. The opportunity to have a salesman down in front of every ship and know that, okay, this company, they're done selling, but there's other guys. There's lots of opportunity for sales down there on the docks that aren't being had for companies because booths are empty, because nobody's in there selling. Now, I don't mean that I'm talking about just the northern tour sales at the end of the day, but I mean there's times where they're not being utilized, where a company can only focus on these few sales and isn't being able to make it, when a few fishermen walk by who would make Nick's day. Because if Nick had one tour a day, you know, that's really all he needs for a small operation to be able to take care of him and his family, and there's a lot of small providers like that. And it's not that their tours are what are going to be made in place of a bigger market, of people who have this huge marketing and are getting people asking about them all the time. I sell tons of ducks. I sell more ducks than I sell our own company. That's mostly because of marketing. People come up and ask for the duck, and I go, here's your duck time. And then when people have to ask about fishing for me to go, oh. And so if I'm in a location and I sell 50 ducks, it's not going to stop me from helping the one fisherman, nor from putting a bunch of people out who want to go see Saxman, nor from setting up the select few who like their flight scene options. There's no reason, there's tons of opportunity cost that's being missed because those booths are only focusing on one thing. And it's not that everybody's looking for a little piece of the pie. We need to stop back and figure out how much there is anyhow and use all of it. Because if there's opportunity, if there's somebody who wants to go do something, and that industry exists, that service that this community can provide exists and isn't provided, that's an opportunity cost we all miss out on. And it's a cost for the person who comes to town who really was looking for that exciting one thing for them. And that's something I really think you guys need to consider. There's no reason this program should be exclusive to anybody at all. And I think the broker system would allow that.
Any questions for Forrest? Thank you very much. All right. One more?
Good evening. My name is Rita Flagg. I live at 2336 4th Avenue. And I laugh when Marco said working his butt off. I'm a mother of 4. I help run 3 businesses. I have a S corporation. I have multiple employees. I have a full-time job that puts me about 60 hours a week. And I still have time to come hang out with you guys.
Thank you.
And above all, the 2 things that seem to come out of whatever I do is the mother in me and the fact that I love where I live, whether I am selling jewelry or helping someone with a tour of any sort. The mother in me is coming to you because there are a few companies to which you have all seen on our letter of support that we gave you last week or last meeting that didn't want to come here and voice themselves, but you do know that they support us, due to retaliation issues, sometimes amongst these lovely companies that we all represent. When coming here at the last meeting and coming to you, presenting an idea of representing everybody, even the little people, the following day, I had a lovely group of people that came into a jewelry store that I'm in and got some jewelry and then proceeded to want to do some zip lining. Well, the younger kids wanted to do the zip line that's got that really cool metal. I proceeded to walk them over to my employee, who went to book the tour. However, they had no seats. I know a little bit better. Now, these kids wanted that metal. I proceeded to walk this group, making no money, making no profit, making nothing out of it, except the fact I love where I live, and I wanted to give these people what they actually wanted. I walked them over to a booth where they then proceeded to ask, and lo and behold, there were seats available. Now, when you are sold out of someone's booth, you gotta abide by certain understandings, otherwise you might not get sold out of those booths. So you are going to be at the mercy of whoever you've made an arrangement with those other 5 booths. Now, you knew there was going to be a handful of people that aren't for the program. Just happens to be those other 5 booths. I'm one of the booths. I could be just like them and think completely of myself and do well for my company. I won't think of my kids, think of my stuff. Absolutely. But that kind of ignores that whole I love where I live thing. I do want to thank Nick. Nick's still covered in fish guts. He just finished dropping someone off, turned around, and actually came here. So these hard-working people haven't even had a chance to go home yet and clean up to come talk to you and fill you in on how fairly we represent people. I have a very good relations with the ships. And John was very correct. You have to work very hard. You have to do very well in order for them to notice you. Somehow at the age of 36, I have now become Mama Rita. I would think that I should be a lot older to be getting that nickname. I have grandmothers come in and look for Mama Rita. I have port lecturers that work on the ship that say you should go to Everyday Alaskan Gifts. It's all Alaskan products. They got a great little section. It's got toys kids can play with. There's Alaskan snacks and foods you can try. And Mama Rita and her crew will make sure you have the best time ever in Ketchikan and Alaska. Anything you want to do, ask them questions. It's an information center. They will help you with anything. And we do. We pride ourselves on it. I have people in Miami that tell people to come to my store here in tiny little Ketchikan, Alaska to find the things they're looking for in the state. My own boss that owns a jewelry store can't get his hands on one of these. The port shopping guides have them. They're the only ones allowed to wear them. Unless you are truly working to make the people that visit this location, truly that's your motivation. I looked at James, I said, can I have one? He said, absolutely, he handed it right to me. No questions asked. Think about those things, please.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? All right.
I hope to keep it pretty brief. My name's Matthew Graham. I live at 399 Baden. I guess I don't know a lot about the issue, so I'll apologize up front. But from what I do understand and what I've heard, I have a couple of just ideas or thoughts to share with the council. And, you know, I might actually ask you guys to answer some things for me if I get confused. But what I do know is it sounds like there's an idea that people outside of Ketchikan should be able to bid on the dock space if it's opened up for anybody to bid on it, and you know, whoever was the highest bidder gets this little booth. Now, what I guess I'm confused about in that is berth 1 and 2 are going to be renovated starting this off season, the old timber dock. And I know from previous employment through another firm before I went out in business on my own that whole dock could have been done in one fell swoop had business been opened up to people, say, down in the lower 48. You could get a larger construction company that could potentially come in and renovate the entire berth in the off-season in 6 months. But the council elected to divide that in phases in order to support local businesses to keep bonding and insurance low enough so that you could keep work here in Ketchikan, which I think is a good idea for, you know, doing what's right by your own community. So I guess I would say, under that logic, why would you open up the booths to people from out of town? The next question I have, or I guess the next thing that I'm curious about is, you know, one of the things that I think makes Ketchikan great for visitors and that they like so much and that I hear in the stores every day is how much of a nice community it is, and that it has a historical significance to it, and people are wholesome and good and friendly. And I think that should you put a bunch of booths out there with a bunch of people accosting passengers as they get off, oh, buy my tour, buy my tour, buy my tour, you start to lose some of that family wholesome value that I think people really feel when they get off the booths or when they get off the ships here. And I don't think that that's good. That's not a good way to portray such a beautiful city as Ketchikan is. So I think keeping the amount of booths that you have is probably a good idea. Getting more, I don't think that necessarily helps anybody out. The last point that I think I'll make is, in any good business structure, having competition across the board is important. You know, in some malls, when they build up, certain businesses won't move into the mall unless they know their competitor is going to be in the mall, because it's good to have equal playing field across the board. And, you know, some people don't like McDonald's, so they'll go find Burger King, you know, as an example of that. So I guess when you have such a large collection of great tours available at different price points offered by different locals here in town, it would seem to me that given that the docks come and are funded and maintained through taxpayer revenue, that all those taxpayers should have an equal shot at having their tour be on the dock. But granted that some of these same taxpayers that pay the same percentage as the guys that make, you know, people keep using the Fortune 500. I don't know if anybody qualifies as Fortune 500 around here, but, you know, whether you make net 50,000, net 100,000, net 500,000, you pay the same percentage as the other guy, which in my mind entitles you to the same right to have a space on that dock and have your tour advertised for anybody who comes to Ketchikan to take. And so the only way that I think that there's a fair way to do that is to have booths that sell everybody's tour. Now, how you go about doing that is entirely up to you. You know, Justin's giving you a great proposal about having independent tours do it. Maybe, you know, I don't know what other options are out there. Maybe, you know, Ketchikan Visitors Bureau could do it. But, I mean, that's a whole other issue in and of itself. But I think that it's important to consider the notion that everybody who's local, everybody who pays for taxes, and everybody who supports this community should have a fair shot at having their business thrive through the tourism that they're paying in every year to support it to make work in this town. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you very much. All right. Has everybody spoken? All right. We shall move on into a recess. A recess. See you in 5. Wow.
I think we will. And it's a flat fee.
Let's go, Matt.
You better do that, 'cause we're gonna be here a while.
You're on, mister.
We're gonna be here a while.
Okay. We're getting last 2 coffees.
Mr. Corporon, you probably are going to want to move forward.
All right. Okay, we're back in order. Mr. Severson told me he has a motion he wants to present. Are you ready, Bob?
I think I am. Your Honor, I move that the City Council direct staff to delay the release of the dock vendor's bid documents until Title 13 of the Port and Title 14 of the Harbor Ketchikan Municipal Code are amended to restrict leases and leaseholders to local companies. And after the completion of and acceptance of the above amendment, the authorization for competitive bid be brought back to the City Council.
Do we have a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, first and second. Bob, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, according to the memorandum, and Steve, would you come forward if you're here for Mr. Corporon? The Amendment 1 to restrict our leaseholders to local companies requires that we review our municipal codes and change Title 13 and 14. Is that correct?
It'd be changing Title 13, which is the port. The language that the mayor had in his original agenda statement, I plagiarized that from Juno when he asked me about it. Since it looks like you guys might be actually thinking about it, I've tweaked it a little bit since then, and I have some draft language ready to go to the attorney for review if you do want to go that way. It's very similar to what's there, but like I said, I've tweaked it just a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what I would like to do. I'd like to make those amendments before we bring it back for authorization.
Well, I believe procedurally what we do, if you give us direction to put something similar to what is in the mayor's agenda statement in there, we'll come back with proposed code changes for a first reading, then a public hearing, then a second reading. So,
Dick?
Yeah, and this may be for Steve, or the attorney back there too. Do we have to delay putting the contract out until the code is amended? Or can we say that this is going to be put out with that basically just Amendment 1 in there, locally owned and with the requirements of a business license and so forth?
I'll defer to Mitch here in a second. My preference would be to wait until the code has actually been changed until we go out for bid, so we don't have to amend it in the middle of the bids.
Mitch Seaver, City Attorney. Yeah, I think particularly because so much of what are really, lease and eligibility conditions are in the code now that we ought to change it. And we can get that back to you in fairly quick order. The one thing I wanted to point out is that this is a pretty, I ought to be, I'll find out more when I start reading it, a pretty limited scope, and something that Steve's looked at we could turn around fairly quickly. The major rewrite between everybody's schedule may take more. I'd given the mayor a head up, but I won't be here at the first meeting in September, and we'll be up north for the Board of Governors and a couple of other things for the next packet. But with my fingers crossed, between Steve and I think we could address this discrete issue, if not by the first, certainly by the second meeting of September. If it waits for the whole package, we could be impacting people's ability to plan for the next season. So those are my thoughts.
Jeff?
I hope I answered your question.
I think so. I think you said we should amend the code
Yes.
before we put the contract out on the table. Street. Okay.
Jack, you have something to say?
Yes, sir, do you foresee any kind of challenge to this based on the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the Constitution?
Well, of course not.
Not the way you write it.
Or if, or if there is, we'll have a partner in the city of Juneau. I don't think it impacts travel per se. Different courts have taken different views. I think we'd have an argument that there's a solid basis for the requirements that you know have in there, that the city has a sufficient interest to have those type of requirements.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Dick?
Just a comment to clarify what Bob said there. So the intent is to amend the code in accordance with our written amendment number 1 here, that basically says those things and make it clear that it's locally owned.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what Mitch and Dave and Steve need to understand. That's the intent.
The language I have drafted up right now is it's almost verbatim what you saw in the mayor's thing. The only thing I've really added, instead of just saying holding a current Alaska business license, I've added the language in a line of business commensurate with the respective vendor program, either sales of tours or food. So it can't just be any Alaska business license. It has to be one for sales of tours, if it's for the tour vendor program, or one for sale of food for the food vendor program.
Would we get this back for the September 1st meeting? That's next Thursday.
I definitely have to defer to Mitch on that.
Packets closes
Friday.
Right, but if we're just going to be addressing, as you'd indicated, Mitch, this particular part of the Title 13 rewrite, then if we can get it within the next couple of days, then we can bring it back for the meeting of the 1st. If this goes for the rest of the things being included in Title 13 to be amended, then no, it won't happen for the 1st.
Anybody have a problem with that?
We may well be looking at late Friday, just so the manager office.
Bob, you got a question?
And then also, just so I have not seen what Mr. Corporon has been working on, but if I understand the intent of the pending motion sufficiently, I envision that it's going to look very much like the excerpt from the Juneau Municipal Code that's in your packet.
Correct.
That's what it's based on.
The question is, Steve, does any of the other things you want to change in Title 13, 14 have an effect on this contract?
They don't have an effect on this contract. I would be disappointed because the changes that we have pending have been pending since December of 2009, and they got caught up with the previous attorney and the delays there. And I finally got on Mitch's calendar here not too long ago, and we've hammered those out. I've made the changes that he and I and my senior harbor master worked on, and it would be disappointing to me to have this one be also an emergency and all these other things that have really been important to us for a wide range of the code. And I know the Port and Harbor Advisory Board is looking forward to finally getting those passed too. All of a sudden, they just get pushed aside again, and who knows when they're going to come back. So I was hoping that they could marry up and we could just bring you all the code changes in Title 13 and 14 at one time. That would be my preference.
Would that be?
I would be hoping within the next couple of weeks.
Are we talking about the second meeting in September, Mitch, or would it be longer?
Well, here's the thing, and first off, I've been extremely attentive to Mr. Corporon's needs since I've been here. But while we have what I'm anticipating is going to be close to the language that's needed, none of it is in the ordinance format yet. None of it has been tracked through in legislative format with the strikeout and the bold and the introductory sections for all the changes, because that's how Mr. Corporon prepared it, and frankly it's been easier for staff to work with, to have it there to all read solid. But as you've seen, when it comes to putting it in the discrete ordinance format, it needs to be reworked. That takes time. I have a court deadline tomorrow. We have construction.
Well, Bob wanted to defer it. He didn't put a specific time unless you guys are really anxious. I mean, when you get it done, and just as soon as possible, you do it. I don't think it's a problem.
Well, if it's done as a package.
Well, I think we want to do everything all at once.
All right. The first, I think realistically, the first meeting in October is the best that we can hope for. I leave the evening of the 1st and am not back until the 12th, which will be late for the packet for the second meeting in September.
I have no problem with that, but
If you prefer that way, we'd be glad to do it.
Okay, Dick?
So the only question I've got then is what effect does that have on the people who want the docks, the booze?
We're still getting it out earlier than we did last time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still.
Jack?
That's
Highly encouraging, Stephen. This is for Stephen. This is allied to some of the comments. I kept score tonight, and it's pretty even on a whole lot of issues. Looking at Amendment 2, what would be the problems in policing that 10% of the tours on board? If at all?
That sparked some interesting discussion among staff during the past week. If we were lucky, the easiest way to do it would be if I understand it right, be requiring the companies themselves have their accountants supply us with a letter saying that their tours are no more than 10%. It would be up to us then to determine how often we would require them to do that. Weekly, monthly, yearly. That's probably the easiest way we could go through with it. I don't know if it would be satisfactory or not, or if that would be acceptable. But that was one of the suggestions from the finance director. My staff's not going to be able to enforce it really, other than just getting something like that in writing, because we're not going to be able to hunt stuff down. We're not going to be going to the cruise lines. I don't know if the companies, the tour operators are going to want us to open their books to us or not. I doubt it. Be a lot easier if you want to do that. Just take away the percentage. Just say either on the ship or not on the ship. Back in the day, when it was the more the independent tour guys, that's a fair way to do it. But now, since so many of them broke everybody else's tours, then what are you going to do? The leaseholder can't be sold on the ship, or none of the tours that's sold in the booth can be sold on the ship. So I don't know if it's a can of worms that's worth really opening up.
Okay, thank you. And also, what's your opinion of increasing the number of booths on the piers?
That's an interesting one. I'll put it this way. The more of them you get in one spot, the worse the behavior becomes. And I'm not saying it's going to be a problem all the time, but the number of problems will increase. When we have had just 2 booths in an area, and that's it, no private ones around, no KBB ones around, those are our booths we have the least amount of problems with. We used to have a lot of problems with the 2 booths down on berth 3 because the Michelsons had 2 or 3 booths, private booths leased out on their private space there within 50 or 60 feet, but it was enough that it was a problem. And it just created, because the more you put in one spot, the more competitive it gets, no matter how much you try and police it, and behavior deteriorates. The Michelsons have done away with theirs now. They did it for a couple of years. They've gotten out of the business. They didn't like what it was doing to their store. And what it presented to there. So berth 3 has been pretty quiet this year. Berth 1 hasn't been too bad. Our problem booth, and so you understand this rotates. So I'm not picking on any one vendor because they rotate every week, one booth, until they start over again. The location we have the most problems in is the 2 booths closest to the KBB, especially the one closest to the KBB, because you have one of our booths on the other side, and you have the KBB booths inside on the other side, but those guys come out a lot, whether it be a smoke break or just working, talking to tourists and that. And so more people, more booths right there, that's where you tend to have the most unacceptable behavior. So I wouldn't want to see more booths. And I definitely don't want to see it down at 4. We don't have any ones on the property we lease right now. There's plenty on the private down there, and that's where there's the most cluster of the outdoor booths is down there, and that's where the behavior, in my opinion, is the worst. If I was directed to put a couple down there, it'd be tight because the city has a separate agreement between us and Silver Paint Holdings and Talbot's. There's a dedicated non-exclusive pedestrian easement that covers a lot of area down there. So there's only a couple little spots I could put a booth in, and there are spots that are not going to make other booths on the private side happy. Or I could put them in the parking lot. I don't want to do that. If I was directed to put 12 booths out there, I've been thinking about that, and my gut reaction after thinking about it for a while, I wouldn't put any more at berth 2. I would probably put 6 booths down at berth 1, but not right where they come off the gangways. I'd line them up down at the base of, where it looks out over Daily Float, and I'd put 6 booths in the berth 3 pavilion. And I'd get the ones at berth 1 and berth 3 away from the main flow of people, because it's a gauntlet enough down at berth 4. And I don't mind them walking by 1 or 2 booths, but if you're trying to tell make people walk by 4 or 5 booths or 6 booths, I wouldn't put them through it, and we don't have the room to do it, not at berth 3 or not at berth 1. So all the booths, to be fair, the booths would have to be moved off the direct path of the tourists and put in an area like they do at KVB. So KVB would have a tour area. So if people wanted to go on a tour, they would go into the KVB. If they come off berth 1 and they want to look for a tour, they would go into the area where the 6 booths are. And then when we renovate down there, probably build them a shelter. And if they want to go to a tour and they're coming off berth 3, they can go in the pavilion down there, and we'll put a sign saying this is where the tour area is. And they wouldn't be running the gauntlet anymore.
Jack, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I see you've been giving this a lot of thought. Appreciate that. Also, is it your opinion and the opinion of your staff that this hawking, as it's been called, is detrimental to the visitor's image of our community?
We get comments from tourists that they don't like that. We've policed it a lot better the last couple of years on our booths. It's still a problem in the private booths, and berth 4 is a perfect example of that, because the people kind of have to walk by them all, and they are allowed to hawk on private property. It's not the most attractive thing to some visitors, but it's a valuable service, and they do have a lot of jobs here in town. So I don't want to see the program go away, and I support the program. I guess bottom line, I really don't support more booths, but if we do get more booths, I'm going to be moving them. They aren't going to be where they are now. And I don't support that Amendment 2 just for a variety of reasons, especially making it very difficult to police.
Thank you very much.
Dick, and then Marty, and then Matt.
Yeah, a couple of comments, Steve, and then a question. One, on Amendment 2, I don't support it. It won't, well, I won't say it won't work, but it's penalizing people that have worked hard to get on those ships, and I know how hard it is to get a tour on that ship. So that's, to me, a non-starter. The other one is the number of booths. Somebody's asked for more booths, and Jack asked the question, and having sat down there now for 2 years and 4 years, several years back, most of the tourists that walk the gauntlet in the KVB come out there just frustrated as you wouldn't believe. And if we put more on every dock, the same thing's going to happen. If anything, I'd figure out a way to spread them out so there's about 6 more feet between them, but it's pretty tight. But I'd leave it alone at 2, and I think the businesses are going to get all the business they're going to get, and you can watch the quality and the tourists come off and see which ones are going to the booths and which ones are not. So I think there's an established number that's going to show up and not show up. So to me, more booths on the dock is not an answer, and it's also not maintaining the quality like the last gentleman that spoke. I think Matthew said maintain the quality, and we're a whole lot better off, especially from representing the community and getting return visitors. And someone else mentioned about the number of returnees, and there's a lot of passengers on those ships are returnees anymore. They know what they want, they know where they're going, so they figured it out. Now the question. A number of the people that spoke up here about selling out of the booth talked about selling fishing trip, this trip, and that trip, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on when I thought that there was a limitation as to what you could sell. Now, explain to me how this is working, because maybe we're already doing it and we don't need to worry about it. Sell everything you want. Just negotiate with the seller, or the vendor.
When I came on board 4 years ago, I had that same question, because I was able to observe the last couple of weeks of the season and read through the code, and they were due to go out for bid then. And so one of the things in talking with my port operations coordinator, Dave Timmerman, was that was probably our biggest concern, or our biggest problem, was people accusing them of selling tours they shouldn't be able to sell. And So we came to the council at the time, and I don't remember who all was on, some of you were, but some weren't, and said, do you want us to tighten it back up and make it so that these are independent tour operators? You know, if the duck tour is a successful bidder, all he can sell is his tours. Or if it's sourdough, all he can sell is sourdough tours. Or do you want to let them keep doing that? And Steve McDonald and Rick Thomas and Justin all came up here and violently objected to us tightening that up and told you guys that, no, we're all selling each other's tours now. I can sell anybody's tour. We just can't have a business interest in between the booths, but you can sell tours. And that's the direction we got. We backed off, and that's what we've been operating on for the last 4 years.
So we're operating on the basis that if one person's got a booth and they have a legitimate tour they're selling, or they're a legitimate tour operator, that they can sell the fishing tour, or they can sell a float plane, because I think every one of them down there sell a float plane. I know all of them don't have a float plane.
Yeah, they don't all sell everybody's tour. Well, Justin claims he sells everybody's tour, but what's that? Okay, but that anybody can basically sell it, any tour. What the policing we do, they have to give us a list of employees, and we make if a person is gonna change booths, they can only do it once a week. You know, when the booths rotate on Sundays, if someone's gonna change booths, that's when they change. You can't sell out of this booth Tuesday morning and then go down to somebody else's booth Tuesday afternoon for a different ship. We caught somebody doing that a couple weeks ago. He was off for the week. He was not allowed to sell on the port for a week.
Okay, now one last question. I think in the paper that Justin gave us, he indicated that a couple of the booths may be operated by somebody leased. I mean, and I'm going to use some names because that's what he threw out there. TAC 1 is operating for Southeast Aviation. Is that legal? Is that true, or is what? And maybe that's not true, so I don't know.
If a person starts the week in that booth, they can be in that booth, and they're on their payroll, but they can't be on payrolls for 2 different booths in the same week.
But technically, Southeast Aviation, do they have a booth?
Yes.
Who operates it, them or somebody else?
Kaz does his own booth pretty much. He's one of the ones that operates probably the closest to an independent tour operator of all of them down there.
Okay.
I'm not saying he sells just his tour, but he tends to focus on that.
Because we have some guys that come up here and will sell for one outfit, and then the next week they'll switch over to the other outfit and sell for them. And then the next week they go back to the other outfit, even though they're...
Those are employees. Those aren't the booth holders.
Yes, and they're employees, but they're bouncing around to the different booths, selling for different
Well, the
people.
employee should be following the owner. Right?
Well, but that's just it. They can't work for our 6 booths. You remember, most of these companies have multiple booths off the port.
I don't care what they do off the port.
Right, but so for the 6 booths on the port,
Yeah.
they can, if an employee starts in a booth that week, that's the only only port booth they can sell out of that week.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, you know. So if the owner moves, he might stay at that booth and work for a different owner the next week.
I didn't get that one.
The employees juggle between booth owners.
We're just working for different people.
Yeah.
Off the port on private property, they juggle all day long. They might sell for this guy here and that guy there, and you know, they're bouncing all over the place. And see, sometimes they forget that they're on the port, and that's what happened to the guy a couple weeks ago. He just kind of forgot where he was.
So have we made it complicated and more than it should be?
You haven't changed anything yet, except for it sounds like narrowing up who can actually bid on them, make them, you know, actually borough residents is how the language I've written. I've kind of Ketchikanized the language that was in the one that I gave the mayor. So I say within the resident within the Ketchikan Gateway Borough. I don't say within the city and borough of Ketchikan, because there is no city and borough of Ketchikan. So.
Marty, you have a question?
Yeah, we have an anti-hawking ordinance, yes?
Correct, on public or on the dock and on public property, not on private property.
Do we use it?
Every day.
What's the punishment? Are we fining
We could fine them $100. We found it's much more effective if you close them down for the day. They've really cleaned their act up over the last couple of years because I've trained my employees, and they know I go down there once or twice a day as well. And we've trained them over and over again and corrected their behavior. What we tell them they can do, because the way the code's written, they can only, offer a tour if someone comes and asks them about a tour. So we don't tell them they can't talk. We tell them you can say, "Good morning, welcome to Ketchikan." But what you can't say is like flight scene or bear tours, Saxman. You can't just say that. They get around it though because one example, a guy was really good at it. He's not on the port anymore. He's actually they've kind of moved him over exclusively to private property. Once he got one or two people around him asking questions, he would just talk very loudly and make any answers. We've got a great tour in Saxman of bears, and so 50 people can hear him saying that. And he's not hawking; he's talking to them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So,
Thanks, Steve.
Matt Olson. Yeah, I've got a question for you, Steve, but the part of this that worries me in terms of going to having a single vendor is I went through Sedona, and in Sedona, the Visitor Center Information Centers are controlled by the Chamber of Commerce, and they're mostly housed by realtors. So you walk in and they're saying, well, you got this, and oh, by the way, we've got this great timeshare, or we have this. And I would hate to, if we decide to go to this, that we would really have to police what could be sold in there, because it turns into more of trying to get hundreds of thousands of dollars out of people rather than having them enjoy the community experience. And it is very off-putting. Steve, here's a question. What if we added 2 booths and then split it so we had 4 of unlimited? Didn't matter what kind of vendor you were, where you sold, that you could bid on it, and then 4 where it was only you could only bid on it if you had no sales on the ships.
the booth holder, or they couldn't even. Let's say
booth holder.
But they could still sell tours that are sold on the ships?
No. You can have 4 that can sell any tours, whether they're sold on the ships or not, and then 4 where it's just independent.
That takes some creative writing in the code. I don't know if we could make that October deadline. But
I mean, I'm asking what would happen if we added 2 rather than made it 12. I guess 8 total. Yeah, it'd be a total of 8.
Then you'd have questions about, do you still rotate to every booth, or just do those 4 just rotate among those 4 booths, and those 4 rotate among those 4 booths? It would bring up some very challenging logistics. And then I've got to try and train my staff on how to tell them apart.
Have one booth be green, one booth be red.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, the burro would have to
that
colors.
Ink and purple.
Yeah.
Any other
My
questions?
daughter.
Any other questions?
The last one is, it did concern me. There was a statement, and I don't remember who made it, that they referenced selling tours that were located in other towns, brokering tours that are outside of the community.
Justin does that, I believe, because he's part of a network for the whole state, as far as I know. I don't know. We don't police that at all right now. I don't.
And we
there's
don't
no
get, we
restriction on
don't,
it.
we, because of our sales tax, we don't get any collections from that.
No? Okay, anything else on the motion? Call the roll on the motion.
Shay?
Yes.
KJ Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Olson?
Can we have no more public comment?
Please.
West? Yes. Jason Harris?
Aye.
Severson?
Yes.
And Coos?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. Are there any other motions? All right. Seeing none of that, will move us on down to mayor and council comments. Yes, we got a quick one. Jason?
None.
Bob?
I think that even though we're moving forward with this motion the way it is, we still can review some of the different information that was brought up in regards to what Skagway's doing in other communities. I think it's always worthwhile to see what other people are doing, what works and what doesn't work. So, but I appreciate the participation and this tour operators coming out to speak about their industry. Thank you.
Dick?
Yeah, I'd echo Bob's comment about thanking the tour operators for coming out, because I think we learned some things and how things were working, and we're all here to just try to make it better and keep the community a quality way for the tourists to come into town, because that's who we're basing our income on now. So we got to keep the quality, whatever we do.
KJ?
I echo what Dick said, and also want to remind you, elections are coming up. If you have any inkling of wanting to be on the city council and having all the fun that we're having, think about it.
Jack?
Yeah, a lot of fun. I'd kind of like to pursue Matt's idea about maybe increasing the booths by 2, a modest amount. Need to do us a little more research on that. You all received a communique from Kathy Wasserman about the timber receipts money and the facts in jeopardy. As I pointed out before, Mayor Kiefer and I are working on a letter to present to our mayor here, supporting this, if we can get some good incidents or some good examples of the benefit to our community for this. Of course, it's mostly on the borough side, because we're talking about school and road funding, and we don't have any road powers here, and the borough's in charge of schools. In that regard, I should have mentioned before when talking about my trip as a board of director to the last meeting of the municipal league, and we did give Kathy Wasserman a raise. That was based on the fact that a number of other states have been interested in recruiting her and dragging her down there, and some of the other states have huge staffs, and their payroll is quite large. As a matter of fact, one of the executive directors of one of the municipal leagues, I think it's in Florida, gets something like $400,000 a year. We didn't raise her that much. In that regard, the municipal league paid for my trip, for my winter trip to the meeting in Anchorage. I paid my transportation, and the city paid the lodging for my recent trip to the board meeting in Sitka. But I would like to see if there's any objection. I would like to attend the conference, the municipal league annual meeting in Fairbanks, if there's no objection.
No objection.
Okay, now, I received a wonderful, simply amazing recommendation here. This is a recommendation for the nation. It reads, the budget should be balanced, the treasury should be refilled, public debt should be reduced, the arrogance of officialdom should be tempered and controlled. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance, and the assistance to foreign lands should be curtailed, lest Rome become bankrupt. This was written by Cicero in 55 BC. I hope we can learn something in 2,050 years anyway. Thank you.
Matt?
The only thing I have is I need to get off the UAS board. We put our times in, and my times were not the ones that were chosen for the meeting, so someone else has to represent us for this council.
Thank you. Marty?
Nothing additional.
Okay, we have an executive session. I thought I had something else, but I can't even think. Do we have a motion? Item 7A.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I move that the City Council declare that, consistent with the General Manager's memorandum dated August 10, 2011, it's in the best interest of the city to go into executive session in accordance with KMC 204-025A3 and AS 4462-310C3 to discuss potential litigation strategies with legal counsel within the attorney-client privilege relating to the impact of the application of the U.S. Forest Service's roadless rule on the Whitman Lake Hydroelectric Project and future city projects.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Severson?
Yes.
Jason Harris?
Aye.
Coos?
Yes.
KJ Harris?
No.
Olson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Shay?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 6-1. Let's adjourn here and meet in another room. We're going to call you Tom Coyne, please. We have action to take. Mr. Coos.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to retain the law firms of Hoffman, Gilman, Silver, Glasgow, and James F. Clark for the amount of not to exceed $10,000 to represent the city as an intervener plaintiff in State of Alaska versus the United States Department of Agriculture et al. Concerning the validity of the roadless rule.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dick, you want to say anything wonderful?
Probably really don't need to say much, except I know we're all concerned about the roadless rule and the effect it has on our economy, our ability to use the natural resources to develop hydropower, cut timber, and do whatever else. So I think it's a rule that's the time has come to challenge it and get it off the books.
Jack?
I'd also like to note that there are a number of other important entities which are joining us in this suit. The announcements of who they are will be made when all the arrangements have been completed. But we're joining a mighty force, and this should help our cause a great deal. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jack. Anybody else? Call the roll.
Coos?
Yes.
Jason Harris?
Aye.
West?
Yes.
KJ Harris?
With pleasure.
Severson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Shay?
With just as much pleasure.
All right, that passes 7-0. I thank you guys for taking extra time this week in our special meeting here, and it took us a while to get through this. And Bob, thanks for the ideas, and thank you very much. I moved,
Yeah.
motion. Adjourned.
Hubba, hubba.